In today's video, I want to clean the engine block, and then I want to talk about all the stamping serial numbers that are on the block, that are on the heads, and that are on the intake, and tell you a little bit about what I learned about each of those, and in so doing expressing or sharing what I know about this engine as it relates to the year the Jeep was manufactured. So I want to do that today. But before I do that, I want to do a little follow-up on one of my podcast videos. In that podcast, I talked about having purpose, not just having purpose in life, but having purpose in retirement. So as you kind of move into retirement, suddenly all of those markers that you get up at this time of day, you go to work at this time of day, you have lunch, you come home, you sit on the couch, you watch the news, all of that stuff that sort of becomes routine in your life, after you retire, it really disappears, it changes. And the danger is, or at least I believe the danger is, that once you settle into having no expectations, no need to do something every day, that it becomes way too easy not to do anything. And it becomes very easy not to accomplish all the things that you thought you might like to accomplish when you were still working. A lot of us, we work for retirement. We think about all the things that we want to do once we leave our 9 to 5, once we leave that job that's supported us for all these years. In my case, it was almost 50 years between all the jobs that I had that I went to work every day. But at 71, what is the motivation to get up and do something every day? Some of us don't need motivation, some of us don't care whether or not we do something or not. And the truth is that we spent 50 years dreaming about all the things that we want to do. Okay, so how do we stay motivated to do those things, to accomplish those things? Some may say those bucket list items that we've always talked about doing. Well, my bucket list item, one of my bucket list items, has always been to rebuild this Jeep that I tore apart 45 years ago. I mean, it's been my life's goal, or a life's goal, for all this time, all those years. And I'm telling you that with the job that I had, with the responsibilities that I had, with the traveling that I was doing, it was sort of like I needed to put all this on the back burner, because when was I going to fit it in? All right. Well, here I am now. I'm retired for 6 years. I was talking to another flat fender YouTuber the other day a little bit about this. And I was also talking even more recently to my wife about this, that YouTube is my motivation for working on these Jeeps. It is the schedule that you keep. It is what allows me every week to think about how can I advance the work on this restoration? How can I advance the work on getting this Jeep back together sometime in what I have left of life? So having purpose and then being motivated to that purpose. And I'm not saying or suggesting that everybody has to have a Jeep to work on, or that they have to do anything. Some of you may just get pleasure in reading magazines or books, and that's okay too. But for me, of the many things that I backburnered, for me, of the many things that are on my bucket list to do, staying motivated to do them are important. So YouTube, the Jeep YouTube channel, serves a purpose much bigger or broader than just presenting the work that I do to all of you. It is the very thing that invigorates me in the morning, that causes me to want to get up in the morning and go and do something that has purpose, that gets the projects pushed down the road. And the side benefit is to all of you, because I get to present to you that work that I'm doing, and you get to watch it for free. And my hope has always been that you enjoy the content, that the content I'm doing is presented in a way that gives you entertainment, that teaches you something, or it gives you the opportunity to learn something that you didn't know before. So, if you guys enjoy this content, please don't be afraid to express it in the comments. Please don't be afraid to give it a thumbs up. And if you're watching me for the first time, please don't be afraid to subscribe to the channel, because it helps keep me motivated to keep working on this Jeep, or the 3 Jeeps that I've got, so that I'm advancing them down the path. So let's get started getting the grease and grub off this engine. So not only I can get it to the machine shop, but I can also show you the serial numbers and talk about what I learned about them.
trees they are singing to the tune of a song, and the wind is gently ringing the bell that brings the morning, the welcome of the dawn.
Well, the engine really cleaned up nice. I was kind of surprised, as messy and greasy as it was, that we were actually get most of that grease and grub off. And you can see most of that blue paint is still left over. So that original blue will be a good comparison to the cans of spray paint that I got for this engine. Now let's talk about all of the casting numbers. Both excited and a little bit disappointed, because when I started looking all this stuff up, I was actually hoping for some mystery that this was a special engine, or anything that said that this engine stood out from any other engine that the Kaiser Willys Corporation built for these V6 powered cars. And in fact, it isn't. It's all pretty standard stuff, pretty unexciting actually. The casting numbers are actually pretty vanilla. So if any of you guys watching are or have been involved in the Dauntless V6 world for years and years and years, I'm sure you've already known all of this. In fact, I used a lot of online websites and some forums to kind of get to this information. And the information that was delivered sort of matches very closely what I found in my own block. What's exciting about this for me is that I can now understand or believe that this engine is original to the Jeep. So why is that important? Well, the Jeep was 11 years old when I bought it. So I don't know how many owners came before me. I know the guy that I bought it from. I knew him personally. And I don't know where he bought it from, or how many folks had owned it before Dick. Anyway, so it's exciting to know that this engine, based on these serial numbers, is period correct for this Jeep, which suggests to me that it is the original engine that was in this Jeep. And I'm going to say frankly, when I look at the condition of all of this, that it is not worn, that and knowing that it only had 54,000 miles or something like that, that this is an engine that reflects that number of miles, and this thing was never abused. It's kind of obvious to me. One of the things that's interesting is the prefixes, or the early numbers, is like 137, and 137 shows up in all of these charts for all of these engines, and that suggests that the serial numbers were actually added to as the years went on, and 137 seems to be the correct first three numbers for a 1966 built engine. Like I go like this, okay? So the block number here is 1375162, and when I come over to the chart, it shows that as a 1375162 for the block, which means that is a period correct block for 1966. I don't know how often those serial numbers were changed. So this block number, shows up on the charts of serial numbers. Let's go over and take a look at the head and the head numbers. So the number on both heads are the same, and it's 1376346, and again, that 137 is sort of that lead number that suggests the heads go with the block. And when we look at the chart, it's the same number, B1376344. Actually, it's 8. It's hard to tell on the casting whether it's a 6 or an 8. So again, in that same range of dates for 66, it's the correct date code for those cylinder heads. Now the last casting number, which is a little confusing to me, is the one for the intake. It's still the 137, and which again, B137 suggests it's the correctly the date coded for it. The casting number, however, I don't have a full list of casting numbers, but this is 1378398, and I can find online 1378, and then the casting numbers that I found were up in the 704 range. But again, I just think it's a sequence more than it is anything else, and I think the 137.8 is probably what's most critical and important. Now, additionally, there are some casting numbers on the rockers for the head, and I haven't looked those up, and I don't know what significance those might be or have. I'm thinking probably not much. I think just having the casting numbers for the block, the head, and the intake is probably more than enough to identify this engine. As much as I had hoped to have some kind of a special engine going into this Jeep, it obviously is not. But what is beneficial knowing this is that I can now use all of the information in the service manual to do what's coming up next, which is I need to do some measurements on the cylinder bore and on the lifter boards to find out where we are 45, 50 years down the road to discover what kind of condition this thing is. So we have a 1966 vintage numbers matching engine, so for what all that is worth to everybody. So this engine, I believe, is original to this Jeep. Okay, knowing that, we can then start using the manual to figure out how many changes, if any changes, have been made to this thing. And that will be the next video when we come back on the Dauntless V6 or the CJ5 restoration, is we're going to start measuring these important or critical dimensions to find out, do I need to do anything extra other than getting it cleaned and magnaflux to make sure there's no cracks in this thing. This is getting kind of fun. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, help me grow this thing, and I will see you in the next video. Doing something. All right guys, love you. I'll see you later. Bye guys.
Daylight is calling. Well,